See, no mess, no fuss, just straight to the business. I had to bleed to get here this morning. We are doing this thing. We are. You see this? This is usually way finished. I haven't even begun it. I just barely got to pour it. So it's on.
Excellent.
It's on.
Great.
We got a nice frosty morning in New Zealand,
Mhm.
all
Minus
round.
three.
It's good.
What's yours
To be
up
honest,
there, Mike?
I don't know, like minus 30 or something. Nah, I have no idea. It's actually not that bad. I mean, it's like just got the typical car sort of, you have to like melt it down before you can
Okay.
take it anywhere.
So
And
proper frost. It's good.
yeah, yeah, but I don't think it's as bad as you guys. I can't see it being as bad. I think yeah, coastal region. I know, but you're on a coast. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
okay,
like
never
I
mind.
can see the
Take it
ocean
back.
from my house. Yeah.
Okay, that must help you a little bit, right?
It
Yeah,
does. It does.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember that from geography. See, Mr. Sutherland, it wasn't all wasted.
As long as the water's not frozen, it helps.
Yeah, true. All right, sweet. And here we are. Where did Andre
Yeah,
go?
we are, but I don't know where Andre went.
Oh, jeez.
Here we are for him early in the morning. And we don't even know if he can hear us complaining about
Oh my goodness. This is just inexcusable behavior.
it.
This is what you're
Hang
gonna
on, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. There we go.
There he is.
You do
Oh, I
realize
think
we're doing this all for you, right?
I think my camera just had a bit of a seizure. It's all good.
Okay.
It's all good. I'm here.
All right,
I'm
all
here.
right,
I'm
okay.
here.
All right. So listen, enough
Thing
dilly
is, look,
dally.
me, I'm staying up until like midnight for this thing. It's not like I'm not making sacrifices.
What a pleasure. You could
Midnight's my bedtime, bro. Come on.
midnight's like whiskey time, you know? That's perfect. You should, if we were doing this for my midnight, it would be a good show.
You'd be feeling relaxed.
I would be in my zone. I'd be in my element. At the moment, that's my watching sea time. Whew. You
Watching
haven't
who?
see it's like this new show on
Oh,
iTunes.
see.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm back. Camera's back. Microphone's back.
Right.
Not sure what happened there. Sorry.
I'll be
All right.
installing updates. That's what mine had to do.
All right. So we want to talk about Tim Keller.
Tim Keller.
Want to raise
Tribute
a glass
to
to
Tim
Tim Keller
Keller.
because the I mean this guy, wow. So I did have a thought, okay, just to kick us off. I mean, okay, everyone knows he's brilliant. Everyone knows he's like this Jedi of
Not
Jedis.
everyone does know that. No, he gets a lot of hate, bro. No one gets more
Okay,
stick
so
than
that's
him.
Let's hate on him first and then love him.
No, wait, because that actually
I don't
helps a
want to
little
hate
bit.
on him at all. I don't want don't do that.
What I'm thinking is because I don't know if you guys saw some of those obituary sort of things, and
Yeah.
everyone's just like, wow, I mean, from totally surprising people and whatnot, you know, just very well respected. Really seems to have nailed that component. He's obviously a brilliant, insightful guy who was friendly and able to. My one thought was, because I'm like the opposite demeanor, so I'm just not brilliant, not or all of that, but also not friendly and all of that. So
No, that is true.
I mean, so if I think about a guy like that, I'm going, wow, he doesn't seem to have anyone against him, and I've got the opposite problem. The whole world's against me, right? So now, how does that? I suppose the way I justify my own, um, if I had to have a funeral and everyone be like, Michael, that jerk, oh, what a jerk. That guy, what a jerk. Oh, wow. Not that guy. Yes, he's dead. Awesome. What a jerk. That would be kind of like
Lutheran Zwingli.
exactly. But I take some small consolation that, you there is place for hatred in ministry. I mean, like you can be hated, such were the prophets. Now, obviously, we're just joking about the jerk thing. You've got to be hated for the gospel ministry, and for
the Apostle Paul was hated. Yeah,
yeah, and of course Jesus. Okay, so there we go. We've got the very clear paradigm. That it's okay. It's okay if people don't all like you like they like Tim Keller. So, but then I'm just wondering, I mean, did he have his enemies as well?
Definitely.
Or do you think he kind of,
Yo, he
because
got so much stick, so much. It seemed like every time I went on social media, there
yeah,
was like a Tim Keller bashing session going on.
really,
And it is because I think you have like, okay, so if we go back to the topic of opposition to the gospel, a lot of that historically has come out of passionate, zealous, not necessarily zeal with knowledge critiques of people. So I think
yeah,
a lot of it is you've got passionate guys. It's a little bit like the 6 day creation debate, right? So you've got a
yes,
lot of guys who are like passionate to defend the Bible, and they
yes,
see anybody who does not go for
yeah,
a straightforward young earth 6 day creation thing as just outright abandoning the Bible's authority, like a
mm,
Ken Ham.
Literal liberal.
Ken
Yeah.
Ham is case in point for this. So Ken Ham and
mm.
even though they're like, no, we definitely recognize that there are other Christians with this view, they still think it's a view that will damn you apart from the grace of God.
At
So
least it brings limbo back into view.
that's right. Yeah, like you may be saved, but you're
you
not
gotta
getting a house.
you're
You're
saved in the
sleeping out in the open.
non-creationist sense.
That's right. You can spend your nights looking up at the stars you said weren't created on the
Exactly.
second
You
day
get
or
a
whatever.
special place.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Um,
so I think you get there's that kind of zeal, that kind of passion, and Tim Keller, because he was such a I don't know what to say or how to describe, but he had such a nuanced, sophisticated argument for things
yeah,
that sometimes that did come across as to particular individuals that he was denying things. But actually, if you listen to what he's actually saying, I don't know if he did. Um,
yeah.
so
Okay, so
I don't think a huge amount of the critiques against him were fair. Some were maybe legit, but a huge amount of them weren't fair.
what you're saying is that a lot of the critiques were from believers, though, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
basically, I mean, yeah, because I was going to say that too. It seems like yeah, that's what got me thinking about this because I'm thinking, but then the more I process the whole idea, I mean, a lot of persecution. I suppose we think, hey, preaching the gospel, staying faithful to the truth, and then you're going to get persecuted from unbelievers and so forth, and that's true. But I suppose there is a lot of in-house, like into Pharisees and Jesus and so forth.
Friendly fire. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and
he was persecuted by the world as well. So he was due to give a talk at Harvard.
that's true.
Jonathan Edwards, where he was, and because he didn't believe that women could preach, there was a massive uproar on campus, and they had to cancel his talk.
whoa, okay,
He got cancelled.
you got
Yeah,
canceled.
he
All
got
right,
cancelled.
so that's something. I mean,
I mean, that's
it's not like
something, but
it's not like pain or
but
anything,
no,
but
but
yeah,
I mean, yeah. So you have to bear in mind that the culture at that time, and still to some extent now, but less so, is that
Cancel
everyone was
culture.
getting cancelled.
Yeah,
Everyone was getting cancelled. Like you could, if you said something like
that's
slightly
still
wrong
going
20
on.
years ago, it's still, yeah, it is still going on. But I mean, that was in the heart of it when it was just like literally everybody was being cancelled. So in one sense, it's absolutely no surprise to me that he got cancelled at that time. I thought it was remarkable he was ever invited. That was
well,
the
that
that
was
was
the
the
real
thing.
thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, but I think um yeah, I think apart from that one occasion, I can't think of any public instances where non-Christians were having
Yeah,
a crack at him. I think he's very well respected.
Right. So and yeah, and it's certainly from my perspective at least. I mean, I wasn't a massive. I mean, I really always appreciated him, but I can't ever say I was a massive Keller nerd. I always every time I read him, I thought, geez, I got to read more Keller. Like this. So not at all sort of lessening what we're saying about him from my
no,
perspective, but it was just my failure not to read more is what I'm saying. And in his whenever I did bring him up, I was always amazed. I was always amazed at how many Christians in reformed circles did
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like him. But that was more for doctrinal theological reasons again, because he was engaging, in my mind, he was engaging with unbelievers in a way that was reasonable, in a way that sort of didn't just thunderbolt them all the time. And that's what they appreciated about him, but that's the slack he got. So I suppose at that level, there was a what I'm seeing in that is, Jesus hanging out with sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes, and the religious community saying, what the heck are you doing? This is totally not cool. And he's just doing it anyway. And it's not tasteful to people. It's not perhaps towing the party line at every corner, but it is as a result, look at the impact he had. And so there is something there.
I mean, I would probably see myself as a killer nerd.
Okay, yeah, I agree. You are a killer nerd, yeah.
So I mean, my learning style is binge, basically immersion forms of learning. And what I did with Tim Keller is I got his Gospel in Life podcast. Have you guys seen that? It's like all his most famous gospel sermons, all available on one podcast. And I always give it to young Christians. It's very, very good.
Okay.
And listen to 120 sermons in 3 months.
So you became him.
I did the same with Michael
channeled
Horton.
him.
I've done the same with James Montgomery Boyce. I've done the same with Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones, where you basically just get to a place where you know what he would say on any text. You could almost like mediate him,
right.
And here is Jesus is better than, you can drop the quote in there.
Yeah. So
you know exactly what it say. And I mean, I'm a critical fan. So, I mean, there are things about Keller that really annoy me. And there are things about Keller which are like, man, he just
sometimes you just wanted him to punch it in the face, right? Like there
exactly. I mean, he was such a gentle guy, and this is his strength as his weakness. Such a gentle guy, so approachable, so patient and gentle and not in your face. That he would often, when I wanted him to show spine, he wouldn't show spine.
Right.
When I think of a man with spine, I think of John MacArthur.
Yeah.
And then Timothy Keller was like the
opposite
anti-type of John MacArthur. Yeah. But in strengths, in terms of.
And so what I became more and more appreciative of is that in those moments of weakness were actually him doing his moments of strength. In that, because no one else could do what he did at that point. Like even if we tried to. It seems like because we would end up skirting around the issue. That's what would happen. We would end up just.
Did you guys ever watch because he at Veritas? There's a platform.
Yes.
And then he went on and spoke about hell, and he totally fluffed it.
Yeah, well, even on
and then he had to write it.
I'm not sure I saw that one.
He totally fluffed it. He gave a written. Apparently his wife said to him afterwards, "What the heck's going on?" Basically, he sounded like an inclusivist.
Okay.
And then he wrote a statement just clarifying that he fluffed it.
Okay.
His wife called him on it, and now he just wants to go public saying this is exactly what I believe.
Yeah.
And he reaffirmed.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. He ate humble pie, and it was great. And so I appreciated that. But just every now and then you hear, and I think what happened was he was trying to keep it on this, like the way he talked about hell, for example.
Well, he's just aware of what he knows that people will hear him saying. That was his thing the whole time. I know that if I just go ahead and say it, you're going to understand me this way. So I'm not going to say it that way. I'm going to say it another way so that when I get to saying it, you're not,
that's right.
And he's always he's trying to keep the door open with unbelievers. And so he's not stopping the conversation with the bold martyr-like banner of truth in your face. And I can feel like I'm a good Christian because I said the right thing at the right time to the right person.
Yeah.
He was always willing to keep the door open. And so he would try and soft pedal it, play his cards close to his chest. And I think they got him into trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he was soft pedaling it so much as in his words, trying to remove those defeater beliefs. So you're looking for the stumbling blocks in that we aren't always aware of. We say a word, it's going to produce associations in people's minds. And he's more conscious of what those associations are because of the time he spends with non-Christians. And so he tries to remove those obstacles. There's a brilliant example of this in when he's giving it at an Oxford Christian Union. I think it's Oxford, one of the universities here in the UK. And he gets asked, in front of all these students about the homosexuality question. And the way he answers it is classic Keller. And it is, I think, an absolute masterclass in how you answer that question.
Right.
So he won't give you the ammunition you're looking for to cancel him.
Yeah.
He won't do it. And he knows exactly. So he goes, before he even answers the question, he answers the objections behind the question, which I think is brilliant. So he knows in your mind, you've got certain things that mean that if you answer this the way I think you're going to answer it, then Christianity can't be an option for me. And he goes for those reasons before he goes for the actual question, which I think is
Yeah.
There's something very Christ-like about it, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and then I was just thinking about that. Like with Jesus, you have two things going on. You have either that, he's like getting right to the heart of it, the thing behind the thing behind the thing behind the thing behind the thing, and then taking care of all of those things so that when it's heard, it's heard. But on the other hand, it's just like, oh, you want the reason to condemn me? Well, here we go. And here's some more.
yeah,
Here's a
yeah,
bonus
yeah,
reason while we're
yeah.
at it, just in case you missed that first one. I'll give you everything you want that you can hate me properly. So he says it in the most blunt and obtruse, parabolic kind of way to almost harden. So, and I think it's better to try and emulate the other side, because that was the messianic side coming through, and only really Jesus gets to do stuff like that. But at the same time, it's just there is something. I mean, to be able to map that out in your interaction with the world is the thing. I mean, that is the masterclass, as you say.
I would say he's the greatest evangelist of the last 50 years.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
100%.
I think
Yeah.
there's
And
no
anyone
one,
who's
there's
read,
no, yeah, exactly.
anyone
I mean,
who's read Belief in an Age of Skepticism and Making Sense of God, I mean, those are beautiful books.
Oh,
Like
brilliant.
they are so beautiful to read. Like
know.
it's just a pleasure from beginning to end. you know?
It's true.
Like it's wonderful. It's like
Kiss on the lips.
it is.
Mwah.
It is. It's like
So
it's like
profound,
snowfall,
Yeah.
on the cherry blossom tree. It's something very, just breathtaking. And I think it is because it is just his character comes through in the writing. So you get that gentleness, that wins, like you're talking to like a wise, father figure,
And someone who's really thought
and
it
you
through.
always know he's much cleverer than you are.
Oh, I never got
much
that feeling.
No.
I mean, like you read those. What I loved about, even just, I mean, I was going to say Reasons for God or Reason for God, but
that's what it's called.
yeah, I mean, that Making Sense of God, I would almost put that as the one. Like when I suggest, I send people to Reason for God first, because that other one, even though he wrote it as a kind of prequel and something to prepare the heart for Reason for God, I think that actually it's quite difficult. It's one of those, just really, you've got to be quite a thoughtful person to be able to like move through all of that.
It's slightly more philosophical. It's arguments for theism. It's not arguments for Christian theism.
Right. So it's almost like once you've landed on, okay, there's enough to work with you to even think about it. How do I deepen this concept of there being a God and so forth? And anyway, what I was going to say about that was when you read through that Making Sense of God, I mean, what I appreciated so much about that whole process. I mean, this is just a kind of focus point for what happens all throughout, but the way you just have this complete security that he has actually thought this thing through with the very serious possibility. There it is. Like he's considered that I might be wrong. Like it could be true that I'm wrong, and I'm willing to say that I am when that comes. So it's not like he's going, I'm not wrong, therefore I'm just going to tell you why I'm not wrong. This was, I just found that over and over again. Like that's what made him dangerous. Like he's toying with the fact that he might be wrong. And
that's right. And I think I see in exactly. I think that's like you realize, you get the impression when you're listening to him, he's someone who's willing to follow the truth where it leads.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally. I got that. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you guys have negative criticism? Like, were there things about Keller that bugged you?
His transformationalism.
Okay, so Center Church. So 500-page book.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I loved reading Keller because I'm not a transformationist. Okay. I loved Keller as a sparring partner.
Okay. Yeah.
He challenged me to articulate my two kingdoms view more, in a better way, because he was someone who was doing it so well. He was someone who was gospel-centered, planting local churches.
Oh, yeah.
He was someone about, engaging with culture constructively.
Yeah.
And, you could always bring it back to his view of shalom and how he's, Jeremiah 31, pray for the shalom of the city means pray for the new heavens on earth. No, that's not what that means. No. You overcooked it. Stop it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean,
is that a bit of a Schaefer like,
exactly?
rub off on him? Like, was he influenced by Schaefer in that way?
Not quite as hardcore in my from all the things up from Center Church. I would have thought of Schaefer as like a notch up on the neo Calvinist spectrum, but
Sure. Yeah.
but in terms of that basic like real appreciation for Schaefer and let's apply Schaefer and so forth, definitely there. But I mean, he did engage with like the Two Kingdom view, and he did engage with, I don't know, when it was a bit of a debacle with Frame and Horton and all of that. I mean, he did chime
Mm.
in, and did what he does. He just sort of like, oh, don't you see we're all friends, and but the problem
Third
is that
way.
their Frame was doing that anyway, and so he did that again, and everyone's saying different things, and but again, you couldn't help but appreciate his heart in the whole thing. You saw he wasn't out to make trouble with it. He wasn't going for this hot out the enemy
Yeah.
agenda. And I mean, look, at that level, it's like you can totally appreciate it. It's fine, like whatever. We've all just got these slightly different emphases. But I did remember thinking, it's good. I mean, like it's amazing that he did what he did there in Redeemer in New York, and it seems that they really did. Actually, they're one of the few examples, maybe even the only example of churches that actually did seem to get their hands on culture and change it a little bit. And
Well, there's also Doug Wilson in Moscow.
oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Although, I
Did
mean,
he did
except except like, I mean, no, well, I think Doug Wilson has freaking hit. I mean, dude, the place is like basically a little Geneva at this point,
yeah,
So we don't want to underplay that reality, but
Yeah.
but it's just like, do we like the end result? Is the
Yeah.
point,
The thing with me and Keller with Center Church was, he basically they planted 500 churches.
Yeah. So it's just like
And then
that's
they're
gonna
like,
that's gonna
and
do
this
some
is what
good.
we think works. And I'm like, well, I think it did work. You know, I'm really listening because man, it's hard not to listen to someone who's planted 500 churches.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. And they were all like these really great churches. They're just like fantastic.
yeah.
Just wow, I could go to that church. I
Yeah.
mean, it did come across as a little bit culturally snobbish. Eventually, I don't know if that was
Yeah, I
just
mean, there were heaps of things that troubled me, like being willing to hire unsaved classical
yeah.
musicians to play your worship for you,
Mm,
just because we're all about excellency in worship.
yeah.
But we worship in spirit and truth. It's from the heart. It'd be filled with spirit to worship,
There were
and
definitely
to
some
to
stuff that
employ unsaved musicians just so it can be nice
yeah,
is not.
Mm.
It's not the point.
where I really saw things that I didn't like, because you see Tim Keller applied at X29, right? That's the whole thing. They've taken, I think you could summarize X29 in some ways by going, right, there's a theologian who's doing mission. Let's take that and let's apply it with even more grit and even more, just on the ground.
Keller
Uh,
with the Driscoll edge.
yeah, exactly. Well, especially after Driscoll and just a lot of the guys looking for good role models and so forth. But I mean, as Killer started to establish himself more and more as that missiological voice, that church planter kind of guy, that how to do cultural engagement guy, I think more and more people just started to listen as he became more popular. Just started to hit the ground with X29. But I mean, it was unmistakable. You talk to people in X29 at global gathering, and everyone has just been deeply deeply influenced by Keller. And it's not just X29, it's all the X20, all the church planting networks, So I think here of Multiply and just we could go on and on. They've all just really, this is
Yeah.
his voice has been the voice. So it was interesting to talk about with them, because you see what gets taken from him sometimes. It's like one thing that, from like you said, you enjoy using him as a sparring partner, and
Yeah.
can appreciate what he's saying just at his level of sophistication. But then when you see how he's often just taken at that popular
There's
level,
Keller and his disciples.
right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's where I had more of the problem, in that there were some things that were, interestingly, as I'm thinking about it, it's almost like it's back to this point. A lot of the arguments were along the lines of, well, we really have to be, this is me summarizing, but and getting to the nub as I see it, but if is your church going to be missed by the community if it's not there? So let's say that somehow the rapture happens and your church is gone or whatever.
Yeah.
Is everyone going, oh no, where's
Oh
Grace
no,
Next?
those people who looked after stray dogs, fed poor,
Exactly.
ran an op shop. Now it's all gone, and we feel a deep vacuum.
Right. And so and so there's that, and then everything gets geared around that. Like, how do we work towards this ideal? But in the process, and look, and obviously you can appreciate that. I mean, that's good. That's a good drive. You want to be a good witness, at some level, I mean, no one's denying that that needs to be there, but it seems like the more it doesn't leave enough room for the like everyone rejoicing that the church has just been killed. And and look, as I we might not be there yet, but as I read Revelation, that's what I'm seeing.
The
You know,
world
and
will
I,
hate you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing in the prophets. That's what I'm seeing, and maybe this is what I'm trying to bring out in Keller himself. That the world loved him. you know, did it hate him enough? I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe they hate MacArthur. You know,
Transformationists always run into the error of optimistic salt and optimistic light.
yeah,
It's because salt's also painful and sharp, and light's also in your eyes when you were in the dark the whole time is painful and sharp.
mm,
And he was always, salt and light equals positive spin
yes, yes.
instead of the negative.
And that I think right on that point, exactly on that point is when I say transformationalism, that's what I'm talking about. That whole thing is not necessarily the case in my opinion. Like salt and light does not always equal you're going to win the cultural war, you're going to be received well. At the end of the day, everything is going to sort of move in a positive direction.
Yeah,
Salt and light might equal
John
like
the Baptist in prison.
totally, and that is not unsuccessful salt or unsuccessful light or God not receiving glory. But I would say more often than not, at least I don't know where I'm sitting now, that's an important thing to grapple with.
Yeah,
Being in New Zealand, where the world's going, but being in New Zealand certainly, the UK, I imagine, if you don't have your head properly on this one, and you think that
Yeah.
Christianity is going to lead to some sort of like, it's only going to work if it works like Redeemer in New
Yeah.
York, that we're in trouble then.
yeah,
I
We're not going to have what
100%
it
agree with
takes.
that.
Yeah,
It's amazing to me how often people think that they can really genuinely get people to like them and like the church by doing good stuff.
yeah,
But the problem with that is that that's true so long as you never mention the gospel. Because the moment you start calling
yeah,
people sinners, you
yeah.
need to repent. Now that adds a little
I think
something
this.
to
I
it.
think the cultural moment that we're in is really showing how foolish that notion is, because
It
Yeah,
is
yeah,
because the
because we
culture is going to
can't even
hate
do
you
it
unless you
anymore.
celebrate their views. They're going to hate you.
Exactly.
So
You can't
the
even
polarity is so extreme.
win them
yeah,
over because the thing that the world wants us to do to show that we're good people are things that we can't do anyway.
exactly.
Like to embrace the LGBT stuff or to just barge head on into the Black Lives Matter movement or something like that, where we might have lots of different concerns. But if you don't do these things, you can't meet the modern standard of what it means to be a good member of society. And so the whole notion but I think it is that notion, that's that feeling that oh no, what's happening? The world has stopped to stop celebrating us, so we have to try and win them over. So let's
Mm,
show them that we aren't actually all that against
mm,
LGBT. And I think
mm.
that whole way of thinking
Yes,
has what
central.
what led the evangelical masses to flirt very dangerously with just embracing false
Yeah.
teaching.
Mm,
So here was one of my problems with Keller is his views on hell. So he always and because hell is one of the most horrible and offensive aspects of Christianity, that eternal conscious torment. I always felt that he was very Lewisish. That hell is a door that you keep locked from the inside.
say that again 10 times.
C.S. Lewisish.
Lush,
C.S. Lewisish.
lush, lush,
That's a good
Lewisish.
one. I'm gonna use that with my kids.
Luashish. Luashish.
Excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So that
Yeah.
that door locked from the inside. So I mean, there's
C.S. Lewis
which
is a
on the
good
one hand,
comparison though with Keller. I think there's so
Yeah.
much about Lewis and Keller that you could talk about
well,
them.
as someone and C.S. Keller said this about his own preaching. He said, and someone remarked on his preaching, which he spoke about. Basically, it was this: when he had time to prepare, he would quote 5 different guys. When he had no time to prepare, he quoted from Lewis.
Nice. Yeah.
So, and he and his wife basically got together over their love of Narnia books. So it was
Okay,
like
right,
Lewis
right.
was like a foundational,
Yes.
uh,
Interesting.
so
Okay.
yeah, like
Well, yeah, I mean the spirit of Lewis came through in Keller, I think.
exactly. And I mean, and there's another guy who I deeply appreciate. He was just a layman's theologian. He was just outside of the box. He was looking at doctrines that we love, not in the traditional way. And because he was so clever, he would draw things out of them that you just were not thinking about because he had a different set of tools. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
so yeah,
Just
the hell from the inside thing always bugged me, and I guess when it comes to and it's probably an evangelistic preference, and this is where other reformed people would critique him. So traditionally, reformed evangelism is 90% law, 10% grace. We all follow Wesley's mold.
Mm-hmm.
You preach the law, you make them feel guilty, you help them to know that they should be scared for their souls, and now you present Jesus to them, and now everything's better.
Mm-hmm.
And so that he actually pushed back at that and said, no, that's not going to work anymore, because we live in a culture where at the mention of the word law, you have a trigger. At the mention of the word law, you have a heap of basically associations which are going to shut the mentality and the conversation down, and we've got to keep that door open. So we need to find new ways of negotiating people's prejudices. And so if we keep just keep using the way of the master style evangelism, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be constantly shutting everyone down because they're preemptively ready to respond to shut down. And so part of his tactic, I think, was to downplay the hell aspect, so as not to shut people down. And then the other thing that he did, which is often critiqued, but I think there's a lot of good in what he did, is he spoke about, instead of sin as lawlessness, he spoke about sin as idolatry. And it was all in his tactic to avoid that allergic response to law, because when people think, well, as soon as you say law, we understand the holiness of God and the rule by which we will be judged. Everyone else thinks strict headmaster and killjoy, and so he was trying to avoid those associations. And so he would go after sin as idolatry, which I think is a very fruitful way to explore sin.
Well, you see, that's the thing, isn't it? Because there is a lot of wisdom in that, and a lot of truth in that. And we even know, like a word like faith, it's a biblical word. You have to teach what faith means, but faith may not be the best word to use at first, because faith may conjure up, a leap in the dark or whatever. So you might use an alternative like trust or confidence or allegiance or something like that. And then you go from there into saying, as you disciple, you're teaching what faith means. So there is a kind of wisdom to that. And that
and his context would be determining, he's working with a post-Christian New York context.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not preaching to his 1689 Reformed Baptist membership. He's preaching to a church that's predominantly unsaved people walking in off the streets, single, recently out of university, between 20 and 30, and that they think in certain terms. So I think his context did shape his message in a large way. And when we compare what he says to a church full of unbelievers to what we say to our church full of members on a Sunday morning, we can feel very righteous about how he's not putting it over quite as well as I do to my people. He sounds like a chicken. But I think we have to appreciate something of his context.
But I think that's right, exactly. But I think that leads into another concern. But it's a concern, but it's also a strength, and I think it gets misunderstood, because, like the hell thing, for instance, I know that basically, and he took a lot of flack for it, because he wouldn't want to talk about hell in as eternal conscious torment at first, but he would get there eventually. Yeah. But it's about what you put at the front end of the conversation. So he's trying to avoid things that will shut the conversation down before it gets started.
Avoid the triggers.
And because of that, he chose to start often at the level of felt need. So when he's communicating the gospel, he's starting at the place of felt needs, and that was part of his idolatry language as well, because your felt need, the thing that you're really longing for, is an idol, because that thing should be God. And so he drew a bit of criticism, and because he made it, you could get the impression, if you weren't paying attention or weren't with him long enough, you could get the impression that the gospel he was proclaiming was a gospel that was going to make you feel satisfied, that was going to make you feel like all of your itches were being scratched. And I think it's fair in a sense, because I think what we often get when we listen to people or are discipled by them is we we kind of get their emphasis. We don't always pay attention to everything and dot all the I's. And so actually, if you listen to him talk, he spent a lot of time at the front end of his conversation, and even in his books, talking about the kind of the kind of longing of our soul and how that gets satisfied in Christ in some or other way. And you could walk away from that with a kind of sense that as a Christian, I'm going to walk around totally satisfied, totally fulfilled all the time, and that's what the gospel was for, to make us feel good until heaven and then forever. And I think that's fair only in the sense that you could get the impression, but I don't think it's fair in the sense that he wasn't ever going to stop there. He would eventually go and proclaim the gospel as salvation from sin through the atonement made on the cross, and I think he would eventually go there. But sometimes,
yeah, he does. And having listened to so many sermons of his, I mean, I will always recommend a young Christian go to Tim Keller, Gospel in Life. If you haven't done yourself the favor of listening to the top hits of Tim Keller, just go and listen to that podcast. There's always about 100 sermons available, and just so worth listening to. And I've given that podcast to people who've gone through a divorce, people who've gone through just suffering, people who are grieving. It's just because it's so gospel centered. It's just full of Jesus. Every single sermon is just Jesus is better than, and it's just it feeds the soul, and he really hits the mark so often.
Yeah.
So what is the sort of greatest thing that Tim Keller has left us with? Like what's the biggest impact? What's the one liner that sort of stuck with you, or the favorite thing that you have from Tim Keller?
Well, I maybe this is a bit of a pet peeve for me right now, but I think that I'm currently reading a book, reading a little bit about pastoral ministry, and just again appreciating this point that has been made by a few people along the way, that as pastoral ministry is going through something of an identity crisis at the moment. It used to be something very clear. What is a pastor? What should he do? He was the public intellectual. I like the way that a lot of people talk about that as well, the public theologian, not in the sense that he's out there on the newspapers and Martin Luther King Jr. or anything like that, but more teaching people how to be in the public. He is the theologian that helps people to live in the world, and so he's to do that, and he is to be someone who studies people, and he is to be someone who studies the word, and he is a thinker and a theologian more than someone who is a personal counselor and a therapist and a CEO and a business, whatever the other models are. And I think Keller really just exemplified all of that. I mean, I realize, of course, as we say this, it's somewhat discouraging, because you'll never come close to being that help that he was to people through his thoughts, through his processing the text and processing people and processing what it means to live in the world and so forth. I mean, he was that's what made him unique. But at the same time, that model, I think, is crucial. And in fact, if everyone just does that, rather than the other things, like the CEO, the business startup, the shrink model, whatever it is, if they just do the Keller thing, at whatever capacity they can do, then they're doing actual pastoral ministry.
Yeah, I was reading. Do you know Jared Wilson? So he wrote a little tribute, and listen to the title of his tribute: "Thousands of Happy Unwitting Plagiarists: The Shaping Legacy of Tim Keller."
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And I thought, he totally nailed it. And one of the things he talks about is the 2007 inaugural address at the Gospel Coalition. You guys ever listen to that?
No.
I've listened.
Well, I might have done, but I can't remember.
It knocked my socks off. It absolutely floored me. So everything you know about Tim Keller is basically, imagine it all boiled down into one message.
Okay.
And just the one thing, I can actually remember where I was when I heard it for the first time. And he basically said, you've got to preach to the hearts. He was giving talking about preaching.
Yeah.
And he's using Jonathan Edwards, and just, you've got to preach until the heart moves.
Yes, I did.
You've got to preach until the heart moves.
Yeah.
You probably, and he said it several times in several ways, but that's just that initial. I've listened to that talk more than once. So Jared Wilson, I really resonated with him because we connected with Keller at the same point.
Yes.
And that idea They preach until the heart moves. You know, like it's in all of my pastoral ministry. Like when people are struggling with their quiet times, just read your Bible till your heart moves. Pray until your heart moves. You know, just like don't just go through the motions of trying to get through the Bible in a year. Make sure that whatever way in which you're reading the Bible is making your heart move, because it's that love for Jesus that's going to overcome your love for sin and enable you to get through each day. And so it's, you know, avoid that ritualistic, heartless religion, but it's, yeah. So just taking it from preaching and applying it all the way down, that for me is the greatest takeaway.
Yeah.
And piggybacking off of that, the way that he was so keen to do that through presenting Christ. So, you know, that's what moves the heart. So I'll never forget what I think in a couple of his talks, he used the same example where he gets home and he asks his wife, you know, how was the sermon? And she said, yeah, it was okay. And then which would be crushing, you know, like if my wife ever dared say that to me, that would be the end of my ministry. I'd just hang it up and stop right there. You know, she knows not to even flirt with.
I know. I preface any question like that with, okay, now listen, you have to lie. You have to lie.
That's right.
Lying is better than the truth.
You have to lie, but tell me truthfully. How
seriously? How was it?
Give me an honest five-star review.
But just remember, you have to lie. Yeah. I didn't want to hear the word.
When you can tell me honestly how my sermon is, but it's not now. It's not. It's definitely not now.
Yeah, I just don't ever want to hear it. I don't want to hear it shaped. I want to be able to imagine my wife critiquing me. I don't even want to be able to think that thought.
No. Just tell me it was awesome.
Just tell me lies. Just go. That's all. That's your job. Yeah.
Anyway. So he gets home, he talks to his wife, and she's like, yeah, it was okay. But at about the 40-minute mark, you know, Jesus turned up. And then it was this amazing, you know, and suddenly the whole sermon just opened up for me. As something like, he tells the story much better. But then
I remember that story. It's good.
Yeah. But the point was, like, always preach Christ. You know, the whole point of preaching, Christian preaching, is Christ. And again, you know, when you're reading the Bible until your heart moves, what's going to move your heart is Christ. And when you're praying until your heart moves, it's going to move your heart is Christ. And I think that was wonderful. A wonderful emphasis that I will definitely take with me. But I think in addition to that, it is, I think that just thinking about communication. So, you know, when I'm communicating, I think I often tend to think of it as just I am offloading information. It doesn't matter how it's being received on the other end. That's not my problem. But I think Keller helped me to think a little bit more compassionately about not just about me saying it accurately, feeling like I've done a good job being faithful in teaching doctrine, but also thinking about what are the likely misunderstandings going to be on the other end, and how can I help to circumnavigate this? You know, so little things like if somebody, you know, going back to that his answer about the homosexuality, and he answered the question first of all by talking about God is a God of love, about Christians being called to love our neighbor, and he put the whole answer of homosexuality. He was very clear on that occasion. He said, "Look, it's not homosexuality is not something the Bible approves of." But he said, but it's in the context of love, that it is by a loving God who commands his people to be a loving people, that this, you know, that's the setting for the command. And I just thought to myself, that is masterful, because what people are thinking is if God says no to homosexuals, he can't be loving. And so he just went straight there, straight to the issue behind the issue, and thought about how any answer he would give would be received. And I just think that's not just for preaching, but for any communication. When you're just talking to people, you're trying to think about, okay, you know, how is what I'm about to say going to land on their end, and is there anything I can do to help avoid unnecessary obstacles? So I think those couple of
things. That's great. I think another emphasis for me was, you know, understanding the narratives, the idolatrous narratives of culture, and deconstructing them. And so I saw him as a great proponent of the best of Van Tillian apologetics, but he also had that extra Plantinian Reformed epistemological school approach as well. Yeah, and he was just so masterful at identifying the idols of culture, which led him to emphasize things like the sins of the right, the sins of the left. You know, he was able to talk about all sorts of things. But just highlighting the idol showing how it feeds into the narrative and showing how that idol is absolutely ludicrous when you actually hold that idol up and say, okay, so if it's all about love, does love need boundaries? And just like, just explore the notion.
Yes.
And just show the folly of sinfulness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So a thought that I've often had is how different he is from John Piper, in terms of just thinking more in terms of his going back to his preaching style and moving the heart. That both of them had that same aim, right? They wanted to, reason to move the heart and so forth. And what always struck me about Keller was, what got me thinking about this was, Andre, you said, you're thinking more about how you're going to say it and more of a compassionate approach, not just unloading information. So when you say that, I always think of John Piper, because I mean, my goodness, the guy put so much effort into crafting his words, and then in the moment he used like such a truckload of energy, to like, it's almost like what you would require for your whole life's ministry, used in that one go, and then I always think of Keller on the other hand, cool as a cucumber, never seemed to break a sweat. And just totally different in that regard in terms of how we convey information, but with exactly the same aim.
But now here's just a question: who do you think is the evangelist?
Yeah, well,
I mean, see, when I think of Tim Keller, I'm seeing him engaging the unbeliever's mind and heart.
Yeah.
When I think of John Piper, I see him engaging the believer's mind and heart.
Well, what I
Keller
see
was, for me, Keller is just evangelist from top to bottom.
So I think that, I don't know. For me, it's not as clear. I suppose traditionally, if I think of my Christian conception of a traditional evangelist, the street preacher, the George Whitefield, the John Wesley, I'm thinking more along the lines of Piper, the great preacher, the guy who's got this rhetoric and this, thing going on. But also, I think of my own conversion, and I think about what ultimately just won me over. It was, I mean, look, those clever arguments help, and the reasoning through definitely helps, no doubt about it. But there's just that moment of pure thunder and lightning, and I don't know how you describe it really, but just that word that you will never hear something like John Piper in the world.
No, it's true. It is true. It's just as far as preaching goes. Sheesh.
It's like heaven comes to earth in this moment, and just like, it's just, I mean, I was grinding my teeth when I listened to him preach. I was actually going through something, existential, that it was full on. And so, and look, and half of it is just shock and awe and horror. And, what the heck is he doing in that? Is this even allowed? But at the same time, it's just, there's something about that old school.
Oh yeah.
Again, John MacArthur, bring him in here as well.
And look, I'm not critiquing it. All I'm saying is, when I think of Tim Keller, and I think of his tone of voice, his emphasis, the way in which he sculpted a message, for me, it felt like he was always seeking to engage the hearts and minds of the unbeliever. He was always that welcoming open foyer to the unbeliever. Christians want the shock and awe up front. We want to know that someone's on God's side. Who is on the Lord's side? Show me your colors. And then I know I can listen to you. But Tim Keller was always the healthy handshake, with the unbeliever as he starts.
But it's also true that that unbelievers, they don't want the show me who's on the Lord's side. But when they hear it, that's the thing that wins them over. So it's kind of a weird thing that's going on. They both have their place, no one doubting.
Exactly, like 1 Corinthians 14. They know that the Lord is among you.
And you can kind of see, exactly. That's a great verse, because that's exactly what I'm thinking about there. It's just that moment, where you're like, okay, this is beyond what any man can sort of preach and do, and there's something going on here. But I think of also Paul, and there's just no doubt, as you see him sort of roll through his ministry, he's reasoning, he's discussing, he's Kellerizing. There's no doubt in my mind that that's happening in a very Kellerish way,
Keller is Paul on Mars Hill. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And yet, I mean, who would doubt that Paul brings the thunder as well, so
Paul in the synagogue. Yeah,
exactly. So it's both there.
Shaking the dust from his feet.
So I have a question, just coming back to one of the points that we said was a critique of Keller was his transformationalism. But did something shift later on? because he got into a heap of trouble over comments that he made about a chaplain. I think it was a university chaplain, who was not a Christian, was maybe even a Muslim. I'm a little rusty on the details, but basically he gave an endorsement. You never heard about this? He gave an endorsement to the appointment of a chaplain who was either like an atheist or from another religion or something like that. And he got slammed because everybody was saying, how can you be in favor of I think it was a university appointment for this chaplain, who's not a Christian? Like, how could you be congratulating the university on a good appointment? Like, how could you be doing that? And his answer to that sounded very Two Kingdoms to me.
Okay, interesting.
Basically acknowledging that was not a Christian space.
There are some bad versions of Two Kingdoms where you can just be neutral on all moral issues in culture because it's not the church.
Yeah, well, if he did tilt in the Two Kingdom direction, he would have done it. Yeah, he would have, I think, hit a perfect ground there. It would have been that more active sort of rather than passive Two Kingdom approach, because it's almost like, I mean, you see this in the, if you think of neo-Calvinism, Two Kingdoms, it's not really that simple. You've got this like major spectrum between the two, and then there's some neo-Calvinists that honestly you can't tell the difference between what them and Van Drunen are saying. So I would put Keller somewhere around there anyway. That's kind of, he never really was full on the hectic Calvinist side. There was a little bit of this missional transformationalism stuff, but not so much the neo-Calvinism per se. And then what I was going to say with that though is that it's sort of like you don't want people to shift onto one of those two extremes. You want them to just tilt. Well, for me anyway, where I would like people to be is just kind of just into that Two Kingdom realm, but right toward that middle, because that I feel is really healthy. And the debate at that level is just like, what is the stance of our mindset? That's what it comes down to. Are we essentially, ready to be proactive, or are we essentially sort of more passive? It's such a nuanced, subtle thing. But I mean, all the conversation, the theological argumentation, the way you would answer a question like that, for example, I mean, it's going to sound exactly the same. It's like, well, this is a secular matter, therefore, it's not, we're not using church polity to determine, the situation. We're seeing this in light of a common grace and so forth. I mean, my goodness, it sounds exactly the same the way that you would handle that. So, that's maybe what could have happened.
Yeah, I think the area
just
where
to clarify, I did find the details. It was an atheist appointed to Harvard as the chaplaincy president of Harvard.
Okay.
Yeah. No comment. I mean, there are some, when things really got heated politically, just pre-COVID, Black Lives Matter and all that stuff, he continued to try and shoot for a third way. So even though the polarities were so extreme, he kept trying to shoot for a middle ground where some things you couldn't be so median on, so middle on. And I think that got him into trouble. So, I mean, the last 5 years, I think he has, as the landscape of political alliances have polarized, someone who shoots for the middle basically is not shooting for anything good anymore. And I think that got him into a lot of trouble towards the end.
The double-edged sword, though, isn't it? Because that's kind of what he was doing the whole way through. Yeah, exactly. It's his high and low. Yeah, but I mean, we got to say this very clearly. I mean, we won't even get to see his house in heaven, So we're critiquing as like little ants, little squishy ants.
Exactly.
And we're talking about Mount Everest, and it's like,
unwitting plagiarists.
Yeah. So
standing on the shoulders of.
Shame on us for even talking this way, really, at the end of the day. And we have to just be clear on that. So we're three brothers that are talking about a really great guy in the church. And we want to be, and
Totally
we have the
appreciate it.
audacity, and we're nerds, so we have the audacity to think through these things at this level. But it is audacity, so we gotta be clear, just in case anyone's hearing us say anything otherwise. Um, may we all be more like Tim Keller.
Yeah, on his good days. Yeah.
I will take the good with the bad as long as I can get more.
Yeah, and so if you had to recommend a book or a sermon or something to listen to, what would you recommend?
I think for my side, we've already said it. Making sense of God,
Yeah.
reason for God. I mean, those things are. If that's not a classic,
those two
I don't know
books
what
together,
is. Yeah.
and I would recommend that you read both of the books. Like,
Yes.
so I think,
yeah.
So I think they both complement each other so beautifully. But yeah, that was for me the big thing. I mean, oh, there were so many talks I heard.
And Center Church is really good. You know, it's like it's very, very riveting, you know, all the way through. And it's like engaging at every level. And you know, even when you disagree, you're gonna like love it. You know,
he looks at the gospel, looks at the church, and he looks at culture. There's
totally. So it's like anyone that loves that kind of thing will love reading that book. But it's just like, you know, it's not where I land ultimately. But
for me, there's a couple of, I guess, adding to all of those, his book on preaching was astounding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his book on prayer was astounding.
You always talk about his book on prayer. I haven't read it yet. Yeah,
so
I can imagine it being good.
Yeah. I remember reading the book on prayer.
I thoroughly recommend, if it's still available. I haven't gone onto iTunes U in a while, but he tag teams with Edmund Clowney. Have you seen those lectures?
Oh no.
So one lecturer is Clowney, one lecturer is Keller. Clowney, Keller, Clowney, Keller, Clowney, Keller, and they tag team.
No way.
Christ-centered preaching, or Christ throughout the whole of scriptures. It's got one of those names based on Clowney's book or something.
Yeah.
And so they tag team it. So basically you've got the teacher and the teacher's greatest student in Keller and Clowney.
Wow.
And they tag team through how to preach Christ in all of scripture. And it is phenomenal.
Why do we not know about
this? I came away thinking, I think Keller did a better job.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I don't think iTunes U is a thing anymore, Nick.
No,
I've still got it on my iPad. Yeah, I know. So you try track those lectures down, because I listened to those maybe 10 years ago.
Well, you got to give us a link now. You got to track it down. You got to send
No, you track it down.
I got to put it on the show notes, bro. That's my job.
Go do your job.
You give me the link.
I'll throw it
on the show. It's a collaborative effort. You know?
So what happened to all that stuff that was on iTunes U? Where did that go?
I don't know. I looked for it the other day. I was shocked.
My iPad still has iTunes U. It still updates the app.
No way.
Do you know what's funny is I've still got somewhere in the house like an external drive that has everything you could possibly get for eSword on it. It has eSword and every possible downloaded file and add-on and everything. I got eSword.
Because when plug it in, it'll update and disappear.
Because when the internet started, you know, you were like, "Oh, wait, this is free. Wait a minute, we gotta.
I've got to download.
Gotta download the internet. Yeah,
that's all I did. Like 10 hours a day, I just downloaded theological resources.
I'll have plenty of life to read this later, but I just right now, all my life needs to be used on this downloading. So you're just watching this thing download. Oh, dude, I downloaded I remember all these theology lectures. Oh wow. Anyway, so. It's just wow, what a colossal mess that was, you know, because none of us have ever.
You have to buy external hard drives to keep it all.
Yeah, and we've still got those external hard drives. But has anyone ever referred to even one download?
I have.
Never.
Have you?
Once.
Yeah.
No, I've just been on the internet all the time. So
because you can keep getting new stuff. That's the problem.
Or the Puritan hard drive. Have you never?
No, of course.
Well,
who didn't fall for that marketing play?
I didn't buy that.
Didn't you?
No.
So everything on there is free. You can actually just borrow friends.
I know.
You're just paying for the device. You're actually paying for the information.
And it's downloaded already. you have to waste another 10 years
a lot of time. You can download other stuff.
Because the new thing now is you don't have to read it. You just have to download it. You know, it's downloaded, therefore
I have it. It's like Logos. You buy a book and you never read it.
Yeah.
It's the Puritan hard drive. It's so hilarious now. Do you remember the Amazon readers, like the Amazon voice?
Yeah.
So they had all mortification of sin before Audible was a big thing.
Yeah.
And all these professional readers before LibriVox even had volunteer readers. You had these Amazon readers, bro.
Yes.
Bro, you should see how many books I went through of those Amazon readers. Bro.
I know.
I'm trying to tune in to the wrong intonations in all the words. Where are the words?
Oh, jeez, yeah. Sometimes, oh
The
man,
emphasis is, hang on,
Yeah.
just while we're chit-chatting, just hang on one sec.
he's doing it again. That's, what is he doing?
Just while we're chatting.
While we're chatting, you
La,
like
la,
totally.
la,
Oh, oh, that
Ooh.
was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Closer,
Ah,
closer,
close up. Yeah, we can't really
Hang on.
see that.
Can't hear what you guys are saying. There you go.
closer,
Hey,
closer,
hey.
Yeah, we
closer.
need to see the design. Close, close.
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
it's
I
got the
can't see
little
now.
Oh,
ribbon.
nice.
There it is. Oh,
1689. Oof, good. Good
beautiful.
surgeon. Pilgrim Theology,
Beautiful.
1689.
Loving the
Beautiful
sketchy
ribbons.
vibe, the
Yeah, it's good.
ribbons. Excellent. Yes.
I
So
got you one,
now,
Nick. In
Oh,
fact, this
thanks,
is
bro.
your one, Nick.
Oh, nice.
Here you go.
and where's mine?
Oh, yeah, about that.
Did you get me extra large or large? I've lost a size in my clothing.
Don't worry, it's
I've
a
sh- I've,
small
sh- I've
size.
shed 14 kilograms.
Sure.
That's a whole episode on its own.
Yeah, I know.
That's two Backstreet Boys.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
No, you got extra large, Bruce, so you can just wear it baggy.
Okay,
That's
that's
what
good.
all the kids are doing these days. So good.
I look like one of the cool kids.
So
You could
now
just wear
I
it under
know.
your flannel shirt.
So there are a lot of listeners out there that are going to be like me without one of these shirts. And
Yeah.
where do they go to purchase this, Andre?
Well, I'll
London.
tell you what I'll do. What we
London.
can do, right?
Yeah.
Is you can either purchase one from the merch store,
Yes.
right? Not this one, but
And
you can purchase
yes,
another
and then
one.
be broke for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what you can do is, if you want one, how's about this? How about this? Do we have like a sign up? We've got a Patreon page or something?
We do have, we do actually, we do. We have one.
Hang on, we've got something, don't we?
We've got something. Yeah.
No, what's the thing? What's the
There's
thing that
nothing
we're
on
on?
it.
You
I
set
don't know.
something
There's
up.
no
Is
thing
it-
yet. I just went ahead
No,
and
but if they sign up to that,
yes.
whatever that
Yes.
thing is,
Oh,
we
like
will send them the graphic.
uh,
So they can print their own shit.
wow.
So you can print your own shit.
So
Until we've got printed shirts to give
so the
away.
reason I didn't go ahead with the patron thing is that there is like a minimum of $1. So you have to pay $1 a month or something to be part of that. So I don't know. I thought like $1 a month, who's going to do that?
Are you
But
saying we don't
maybe
have a Patreon page?
no, we do have one. It's just like who's that have to pay for this.
Yeah.
They have to pay $1. There's no way to do Patreon free. So
It is. If
Oh.
we should stop giving away our absolute gold for free. Yeah.
all right. Well,
Joke.
it's unanimous then.
I'm like Lloyd Jones. I wouldn't cross the road to hear myself preach.
But there would well what Andrea and myself did think about, and we did get to talking a little.
We got to talking.
we got to
We
dreaming.
got to talking.
We just thought it would be kind of cool to have like, because the thing I don't want to throw those little bits, where we're joking around. I'm not sure I'm comfortable throwing that out to the whole world, So and like something like $1 a month would be it'll kind of
I
pay
could
for the
tell them my
website.
jokes, like Patreon jokes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you don't want to miss that.
definitely can't put those on, but they cannot go on to the public. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But if we did put them on Patreon, we'd be charging $10 a month because those things are good.
It's good.
That's just a career,
and we'll change the way that you see Nick and the world forever.
Exactly. But just it'd be like a guild membership thing where you just like people the in-house 2H sojourners you're willing to pay $1 a month, whatever, and hopefully it's not too much skin off your back, but it's just paying for the website.
Do you know what'd be really cool?
Mm.
Do you know what'd be really cool? Is if we have a Patreon thing where we do a hangout that people could join, like in the Zoom room. Like people could just come on the Zoom with us.
But mom and dad are already over there. They're right across the road. I can just go get them.
That's right. You could just bring them in. That's true.
Yeah. I mean,
just in case anybody else wanted.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. No, yeah, okay. Okay. Well, anyways, so there's a possibility there could be some sort of functional, purpose for this. So I'll go ahead and put that graphic on the Patreon account. And I'll just leave it there. And you can I feel bad for not just giving the graphic away.
Why don't we just give it away? Let's stick it on the Facebook page. Do you have a Facebook page?
Everyone who makes their favorite comment about Tim Keller in the YouTube feed will get a graphic sent to them by email if they leave their email address.
Nice. Nice.
But you can't leave your email
I
address.
don't want
YouTube
their
feed.
email address. What do we want that for? I'm not
Can't
going to
do
email anyone.
Oh, just leave the graphic in the YouTube. Can you leave it there?
Leave the comment.
Why do we want to comment? I don't actually like comments.
No, because we want comments. Comments are
Why?
good
Why?
for our videos.
Why?
Be more constructive with your feedback. We thought this through very carefully.
Dude, people need to pay for this moment right now.
You can tell we have a solid business strategy. This is why we're so successful in life.
It's like, oh, dude, it's like we're trying to collect people's emails, and I don't know what.
That's
the
what
heck
you're
I would
supposed to
with
do.
emails.
I just know that's what you're supposed
Did
to do.
you guys
okay.
realize we now have 250 subscribers on YouTube?
Okay, one. Okay, this is
the quarter
all right.
millennium.
All right, let's say goodbye. Let's just say goodbye to everyone. Goodbye, everyone. This is okay. Goodbye. Yeah.
Still recording.
Okay.
Nick, can't relax.